When we first got married, we had come from various living and working in Bible camp environments. Dave had been living with a whole bunch of guys throughout university, so both of us had already had living with people in community as a part of our background. But we got married and assumed we should probably live on our own for a little while to figure out marriage. And like a few months in, we ended up having some friends of friends with an emergency for housing, and we thought it's silly for us to live in a house with an extra bedroom when someone else is desperate for a space. So we took them in, and then it kind of just turned into one thing after another. Another person needed a space, and then someone else needed a space. And before we knew it, we were buying a house. We went shopping for a 3-bedroom house, and then God gave us a 4-bedroom house, which with more bedrooms and bathrooms than we'd anticipated. So our first thought in that was, what is God going to do with this bedroom? Because we have a bedroom sitting here, and we just never had a bedroom sitting there. So we ended up taking in a Japanese boy. Within 2 weeks of buying the house and moving in, on Facebook, we found out there was a Japanese boy who was pretty desperate for housing, an international student about to be sent home. And we thought, Dave speaks Japanese and he knows the culture, we should do this. And it was probably the hardest 6 months of my life. But at the end of it, he burst into tears. We did a little goodbye party for him, and I thought he hated me the entire time. It was a really difficult experience, and he had a lot of behavioral issues, but we did a goodbye party for him with our friends because he hadn't really developed any of his own. And he like ugly cried for 10 minutes when we gave him a little album of pictures. And then he said that we were his family, and he said like Dave was his dad. And he even messaged us a year later when Jax was born saying, "How come you didn't tell me I have a brother?" And we just thought, his home life had been very difficult, and so living with us, as hard as it was, made a massive impact in his life, and he got to see what real family is supposed to look like. And so after realizing that although that was really hard, there were times where I hid out in my room just to avoid him at moments, I thought, oh, if that difficult thing can make this much impact, then we need to live with people forever. And then we moved here. We'd saved tons of money in Grand Prairie and knew that we wanted to do ministry of some sort. Dave had wanted to be a church planter. So we moved here, and the market had increased by like $200,000 more than we'd saved. So we weren't sure how he was going to do it. We house hunted for like 5 years. We put Dave back in school to get a different career that would make more money, and always thought maybe he'd have to graduate before God gave us a house. And then we tried to buy a few different houses, a bunch of things worked and then didn't, and nothing quite ever happened until this place came on the market. We looked at it and thought, no way, it's too nice and it's too expensive. And 3 months later, it was still on the market, and we thought, oh, that's interesting. But the market had just started to tank, and interest rates were skyrocketing, and because of high interest rates, we probably couldn't afford it. But we made a list of 4 or 5 different things that God would need to do that would be miracles to get us into this house. Like Dave made like $50,000 a year, and we just prayed. The house that we owned in Grand Prairie never sold, so God ended up satisfying that, and we had family that ended up getting a massive inheritance like a month before we moved in, like basically right when we were putting in the offer, within a few weeks. And they decided they wanted to buy into the house with us. Do you remember some of the other things? There was a few things that we really needed to have happen. And I remember us just like crying as we watched God knock down all of these things that felt totally impossible. Oh yeah, and
we didn't have enough
emergency fund. We knew if we got into it, that we wouldn't have enough money in case an emergency came up. And then someone from the church stepped in and offered to co-sign for us, which was crazy. And then this person came in and said, I just feel like God's been doing this, speaking to us about it, and we want to help you out. Like, what do you need to get in? And when we said these things, they basically said, sure, we'll do all of it, and can we co-sign? And that made me be like, wow, okay, we thought God was in it, but it felt like, wow, God's doing this.
One of our great passions, like one of the burdens that God has really put on our hearts, is to really always treat our international students like our kids. We always tell our international students, like, you're not a guest, you are family. And we've kind of taken that like attitude that we really feel like West Village exemplifies, of like moving guests to family. And very quickly our house has become full, and we have this kind of little micro community
It feels more like a larger micro community.
Yeah, it's a very
now.
it's a little bit more than I guess a micro community. So yeah, we've got like a young couple who lives downstairs. We've got like 3 college students who live downstairs, and they all know each other from Camp Imidine. And then we have 4 international students who share a space with us. And so we've just had like so many times where it's like, you know, we've had like a bunch of people in and out of the house and kids running around, and God's just blessed us with this like full house, full hearts kind of feeling.
It's like we could go play a sport and have teams.
Yeah, we could have a team. And that's our prayer, that we would continue to do that and continue to work with others to try and get others to open their homes to the foreigner among us, and to love others as we love ourselves.